The morning rush at Grand Central Terminal was a blur of polished shoes, clinking coffee cups, and the steady hum of voices echoing beneath vaulted ceilings. Amid the bustle, a sleek train stood poised for departure on Platform 7, its name etched in gold across its side. The Monarch Line. It was the pinnacle of luxury rail travel, reserved for the elite, and its first-class suites were usually filled with power suits, pearls, and arrogance. Selina Harwood moved through the station, unnoticed. Her pace was unhurried, her steps confident. Dressed in a charcoal coat with matching gloves and low-heeled boots, she carried only a leather-bound notebook and a structured handbag. She didn't demand attention, but she didn't shrink from it either. When the attendant at the boarding gate checked her ticket, her name flashed on the screen in bold, Selina Harwood. The attendant hesitated for a moment, then stepped aside without a word. The suite she entered near the front of the train was quiet and bathed in soft light from wide windows. Polished wood trim, velvet upholstery, and a single crystal vase holding fresh orchids. She placed her notebook on the table, slipped off her coat, and took a seat. The journey to Chicago would take a little over 16 hours. Selina intended to spend most of it reading and observing. Just as she reached into her bag for her glasses, the sliding door jerked open. A tall man in a conductor's uniform stepped in with a clipboard in one hand and a practiced scowl on his face. "Excuse me," he said, his voice clipped. "This section is for first-class travelers only." Selina looked up, calm. "I'm aware." The man frowned. "I'm going to need to see your boarding pass." Without hesitation, she reached into her coat pocket and handed it to him. He scanned it with a handheld device. Her name appeared again, along with confirmation of her reservation. His jaw twitched. His eyes scanned her from head to toe. Natural curls pulled back, a simple turtleneck, no obvious designer logos. He handed the ticket back, but his expression didn't soften. "This must be a mistake," he muttered. "Do you know how much these suites cost?" Selina tilted her head slightly. "I do." "I've worked this line for 12 years, he went on, almost to himself. "Never seen someone like you in this section." Her posture didn't change, but the room seemed too still. "Someone like me?" He cleared his throat, but didn't apologize. "I'll have to verify this with my supervisor." She gave a small nod. "Go ahead." He turned sharply on his heel and stormed out, leaving the door open behind him. A couple across the aisle, sipping champagne, exchanged a glance. Another man pretending to read the newspaper lowered it slightly, just enough to watch. Whispers floated through the cabin like smoke. Selina remained still. She didn't fidget. She didn't chase him. She adjusted her sleeve and looked out the window as the train's engine groaned to life. Minutes later, the conductor returned, his face a strange shade of pale. He stopped in the doorway, eyes wide. "Ma'am, there appears to be no error. Your name? You're listed as executive tier. I didn't realize." Selina stood slowly, her tone even. "You didn't ask." He stumbled over his next words, trying to find footing in a conversation that had shifted beneath him. "If there's anything I can do," she met his eyes. "You already did enough." He swallowed hard. The silence that followed was louder than the station's earlier chaos. For the first time, everyone on board seemed to realize this wasn't just a misunderstanding. It was a moment they wouldn't forget. The train curved along the Hudson River, its wheels humming over polished tracks as the city receded into the distance. Inside the luxurious first-class cabin, the atmosphere had shifted. Whispers replaced idle chatter. Eyes darted and lingered, passengers stealing glances at the woman who had quietly reclaimed her seat without a single word of protest or explanation. Selina Harwood sat with her back straight, her notebook open on the table. The conductor, Mr. Dalton, paced just outside her suite, phone pressed to his ear, voice low but tense. His arrogance had evaporated. What began as a dismissive confrontation now felt like a slow unraveling, and everyone nearby sensed it. A steward passed by offering drinks, his hand shaking slightly as he offered Selina a flute of sparkling water with a napkin embossed with the train's crest. She accepted it with a nod, never looking up from the page she was writing on. In the lounge car just ahead, Dalton spoke in hushed tones with his direct supervisor, a woman with clipped speech and unmistakable authority. Her voice carried just enough for nearby passengers to catch fragments. "Yes, she's in Suite 1A. I assumed there was a mix-up. I didn't recognize the name." He stopped short when the voice on the other end snapped back, causing his face to flush red. He stammered out a quiet, "Understood," then ended the call with trembling fingers. Dalton returned to the suite with a stiff spine and a forced expression. He paused at the doorway, as if unsure whether to knock or kneel. Selina finally looked up, her gaze calm but unreadable. "I've spoken with management," he began, voice tight. "They confirmed your status with Monarch Rail. You're not just a traveler. You're—" She held up a hand, cutting him off gently but firmly. "I know who I am." Passengers leaned in, pretending to be absorbed in newspapers or e-readers. One man angled his phone discreetly, recording the exchange from behind a pair of tinted glasses. Every word mattered now. The moment had transformed from a personal slight to a public reckoning. "I want to sincerely apologize," Dalton said, struggling with the words. "I misjudged the situation. And you." Selina closed her notebook and placed it on the table, her hands folded neatly in her lap. "You didn't misjudge the situation. You judged me." The tension in the air thickened. No one dared speak. Even the rhythmic clatter of the train on the rails seemed to fade beneath the weight of her response. Shifted awkwardly, his jaw tightening. "Would you prefer another attendant for the remainder of your journey?" She looked at him for a long moment before answering. "No. You'll serve me." Dalton blinked. Of course. With care. With respect. The same as you would if I wore a suit and carried a different last name." His nod was mechanical, the realization of his mistake settling over him like a fog. "Understood." As he turned to leave, a child across the aisle tugged at her mother's sleeve and pointed. "Is she the boss of the whole train?" The mother gave a nervous smile, gently shushing the child, but Selina answered anyway. "I built the company from scratch," she said, her voice steady but soft. "Not for luxury, not for appearances, for freedom, for people to move without being seen as less than." That one sentence echoed beyond the suite. A few passengers looked away, their faces red with embarrassment. Others seemed moved, visibly questioning their own assumptions. Even the steward from earlier stopped mid-step, mouth slightly open. Later, as lunch was served, Dalton returned with a tray he carried like an offering. Every movement was careful. He didn't speak unless spoken. 2. Selina accepted the meal with a quiet thank you, and that simple phrase seemed to wound him more than any lecture. No raised voice, no scene, just dignity. In the privacy of the train's operations car, the head office was already buzzing. Calls were made, updates sent, reputations on the line. The woman in Suite 1A had triggered a storm without ever standing up. 2 hours. Into the trip, Selina stepped into the observation car to stretch her legs. Heads turned. A woman offered her seat. A man stood respectfully as she passed. No one knew quite what to say. She didn't need them to say anything. The silence said, "Enough." The golden light of late afternoon filtered through the train's wide windows as the landscape shifted from rolling hills to endless plains. The Monarch line glided forward, elegant and steady, but inside the first-class cabin, the atmosphere felt heavier than when the journey began. Whispers had quieted into introspective silence. Passengers no longer looked at Selina with suspicion or curiosity. They looked with recognition. Selina sat in the same position she had taken hours earlier, her posture relaxed but poised. Her meal tray had long been cleared, her notebook closed and resting atop a velvet case. The same attendants who once barely acknowledged her now moved with precise care when near her, as though proximity demanded reverence. Mr. Dalton had returned once more, this time without a clipboard or apology. He held a delicate porcelain cup, filled with tea steeped exactly to her earlier specifications. She accepted it with a simple nod, eyes never leaving the passing fields outside. He remained standing, unsure if he should speak. His face had lost the smugness it wore earlier that morning. Now it was drawn with the weariness of regret. "Miss Harwood," he began, voice subdued, "I've spent all day thinking about what happened." She didn't respond right away. Her fingers wrapped around the warm cup, the faint scent of jasmine rising from the steam. "I've worked trains since I was 20, he continued. "I thought I knew people, thought I could spot trouble. But I wasn't looking at facts. I was looking at a story I told myself the second I saw you." Selina turned her head, meeting his gaze with quiet strength. "And what story was that?" he faltered. "That you didn't belong. That someone like you couldn't be part of this world." Her voice was even. "And what do you see now?" He swallowed, his throat bobbing visibly. "The woman who built it." Passengers nearby pretended not to listen, but the stillness in the cabin betrayed their focus. Even the tapping of devices and clinking of glass had ceased. Selina placed her tea gently on the tray table. "Mistakes can be powerful teachers," she said, "if you listen to what they're trying to show you." He nodded slowly, absorbing them, the words like medicine. "Uncomfortable, but necessary." "I want to do better," he said, barely louder than a whisper. She studied him for a beat. "Then start now." At the next stop, a young black girl boarded the train with her mother. The girl's eyes widened when she saw Selina, her gaze locking onto her like she was watching someone out of a dream. Selina offered a soft smile and motioned the girl closer. The conductor stepped aside without being asked. "What's your name?" Selina asked gently. "Maya," the girl whispered, clutching a worn teddy bear. Selina reached into her blazer pocket and pulled out a business card, black with gold embossing. She handed it to Maya like it was a treasure. "Keep this. Someday, when you need to remember what you're capable of, read it again." The mother placed a hand over her heart, overwhelmed. "Thank you. For more than just the card." Selina nodded, her message clear without elaboration. As the train neared Chicago, the sun began to set, casting amber light through the high windows. City skylines formed in the distance, sharp against the darkening sky. Inside, suitcases were zipped, coats collected, final drinks poured, but no one rushed. There was something sacred in the slowing down. Outside Selina's suite, a man in a tailored gray suit stood waiting. He worked directly under her, dispatched from headquarters after hearing of the morning incident. He didn't speak until she stepped into the aisle. "Everything's been documented," he said softly. "We can handle this however you wish." She paused, looking over her shoulder at Dalton. He stood near the cabin wall, hands behind his back, gaze lowered. "I've already made my decision," she replied. The man gave a subtle nod. "Understood." As passengers exited the train, some paused to shake her hand. Others simply nodded, in respect. A few offered sheepish glances, too ashamed to speak. Selina didn't need their words. Once outside, the terminal buzzed with early evening activity. A private car waited nearby. Her driver held the door open without fanfare. As she stepped in, she caught a final glimpse of the train behind her, still, gleaming, full of echoes. Her phone buzzed. A message lit the screen. "Next board meeting confirmed. Press wants a statement. Let me know if you're ready." Selina turned the screen face down. Through the tinted window, she watched the world move. Hurried feet, glowing signs, strangers, in transit. She didn't need a microphone to speak her truth. She had said everything without raising her voice. She leaned back in her seat, eyes steady, her silence now louder than any apology could ever be.